Hi, this is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next, I may have one of the biggest comic haul videos on YouTube. I also asked the question, would you rather have a big pile of keys or an AF-15? Stay tuned to find out what my answer is. Alright, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So I had mentioned in my prior market video that I had a whole bunch of boxes to open that had comics in them, and I was wondering kind of like how I should work through them. And I decided I wanted to do just like a really big haul video, but I wanted to do it in maybe a little more interesting way than just, you know, opening a whole bunch of books and, you know, show them off. So I wanted to frame it around what I think is kind of an interesting question that we all really as collectors face every day, and it's, do I buy this book or that book? And in this case, do I buy a AF-15, and I'm going to say a 2.5 AF-15, or a whole bunch of keys? And so I've got a lot of boxes here. I've got these and these and these and these. so I have a lot of books that I'm going to open. I'm not going to make you watch me unbox all of these. What I'll do is I'll kind of open them all and then I'll go through them. But, you know, I think a lot of us think that maybe that's an easy question to answer. You know, you might think like, well, of course I would take the AF-15. But the reality is, most of us don't make that decision, you know, myself included. You can see I have a whole bunch of boxes here, and I don't have an AF-15. And, you know, you could substitute that in with some other book. You know, it could be an X-Men one, or a Fantastic Four one, or a Hulk one, or whatever it might be, you know, one of these huge Grail-type books. And, you know, why don't we buy that book? Instead, we go buy all these other books. And the other thing that kind of drove this question for me, you know, it's kind of an idea that was kind of put in my head a while ago as I was on Instagram, and somebody had made a post where they were making fun of people that didn't buy, you know, just like AF-15s or Hulk 1s or that kind of thing, and were buying, you know, other books. They weren't buying these big Silver Age keys. And I made the comment that me personally, I tend to like to buy the other types of books, you know, not buying that big, you know, huge Grail. And the person called me stupid. You know? And so I decided to turn that negative experience into a positive and show why I think, you know, it can be a very good decision to buy these books. And now I'm not saying you have to do one or the other. I mean, collecting, that's one of the kind of fun parts of collecting, is that you get to do it the way you want. You know, you get to get the books that you want, and everybody has different goals. And I decided to talk about the way that I look at these and, you know, why I make the decisions to buy the books that I buy. You know, because, I mean, if you kind of like see the books that are behind me here, I could sell all those books and I could buy an X-Men one. You know, that is an option I have, but clearly I don't do that. I still have all those books, and I don't have an X-Men one. And so, you know, it's one of those things about collecting, is that it's not necessarily the same goal for everybody. You know, I like having, you know, a variety of keys, and I like those different books, and, you know, I'd rather have that than that one single book. But before I kind of go into all this and, you know, all my different thoughts on that, I'm going to open all these boxes. I'm going to have kind of a stack of books here, and I'll go through what's here, and I'll also talk about some numbers. So stay tuned. I'm going to open these boxes, and we'll start talking about these books. All right, so that took a long time to open all those boxes, so I'm glad I did it outside of, you know, kind of like the filming. There was a lot of variety of packaging and everything, but everything arrived safe. I've got it all accounted for, and it's everything that I expected to be in these boxes. Now, I did also have a slight ulterior motive to wanting to open all of these. Alex the Comic Hoarder posted a video recently where he did his top 50 books, and some of the books that I need for that video were in these boxes. And so you will see those again, kind of a couple of them in the top 50 video, but I needed to get into those boxes so I could make that video. Now, there is a wide variety of books in here. There are modern keys, Bronze Age keys, Silver Age keys, and Golden Age keys. So there's something for everybody, and so I'm real excited to get into these. I'm going to start with the raw books. There are a few raw books, and then I will get into the graded books. And I'm going to go basically kind of from least expensive to most expensive. Now, before I get started, I want to talk just a little bit on numbers. So when I said that I was comparing this to an Amazing Fantasy 15 2.5, that book approximately is selling for around $23,000 right now. And so what I did, because some of these boxes have been kind of sitting around for a little while, I took the value of the books when I purchased them, because as we know, the market has gotten crazy lately, and so a lot of these books have gone up in value, and I didn't think that was really fair to do a comparison like that, so I took the value of these books when I purchased them, as well as what I paid for them, and then I'm making that comparison to an AF-15. So an Amazing Fantasy 15 right now in a 2.5, which is the book I was talking about, is around a $23,000 book. And the value of these books at the time that I bought them was approximately $23,200 for all of them. So I felt like that was a pretty good comparison. So I'm going to get into these. Like I said, I'm going to start with the raw books, and I'm going to go least expensive to most expensive. So the first book here is Akira #1. This is the first print. This book has gotten very hot lately because the director for Thor Ragnarok is going to be taking on Akira, and so there's a lot of kind of like hype around that. It's a crazy story. If you've never watched the anime, it's nuts. This book is tough to get in high grade because it's of all the black. It's a really thick book, so you can see that as well. It's a really thick book as well. This one I think was, this one was sold as a 9.2. I don't know if it's a 9.2. It might be a 9.0. We'll see. There's like a little, it's kind of like this like dings down on the bottom. We'll see. But still, it's a great book to have right now. Second book is Aliens #1, and this is the first print. This is also a very hard book to get in high grade because of all the black. This one was sold as a 9.0. I think it's a 9.0. It looks like it. And I've loved the Aliens franchise since I was a kid. It scared me as a kid. My parents allowed me to watch it was the second Aliens movie, the one where you have a bunch of them, and scared me of the dark for years. But I love this property. I've loved all the Aliens movies and the subsequent movies that were made later, and so I'm excited to see what Marvel's going to do with this, because these books have gotten really hot because Marvel has retaken that property, and so we expect to kind of like see more of that stuff to start showing up. Now the next one was a lot of 3 books, and so this is Marvel Feature 1, 2, and 3. So it's the first, second, and I would say probably should be the third appearance of the Defenders, and they aren't really high grade or anything, but it's a big key, and so they look nice in Mylar, but it's a big key. It's a great book to have. There's always talk of there being kind of them bringing back the Defenders and doing more with that group of characters. So the biggest one obviously from this is #1, Marvel Feature #1, which is the first appearance of the Defenders. #2 holds some value, #3 not so much, but the biggest one here is this book. Now the next one is Conan the Barbarian #1, and this is about a 3.5 is what this was sold as, and I'd say that's probably about right. And it's its first appearance of Conan. I believe I've talked about this book in the past. It's also one of the books that's considered the start of the Bronze Age, along with Green Lantern 76. It's a great cover, first appearance. It's his first appearance. He's also right on the cover, and I'm always happy to get copies of this book. Next book is another great key to have right now, and this is Hero for Hire #1. This is the first appearance of Luke Cage. This one was sold around a 6.0, and I think that looks about right. It's approximately the same grade of another raw copy that I have of this. Again, just these first appearance, Marvel keys for characters that are likely gonna, pop back up are great to have, and I'm always happy to get, multiple copies of those. Next one is, and I love getting books from this run now because it is just such a popular run of books, and this is X-Men #13. This one was sold as a 6.0, and I'd say it at least looks a 6.0. It is a nice looking copy, and this is the second appearance of the Juggernaut. It's not as great of a cover as his first appearance, which is right up there, but still, it's another book that has gotten a lot more expensive lately. Great book to have anytime you can get these X-Men keys. And this next one is one I think I've mentioned before. I have 12 copies of this book now. This was actually a lot of 2 books, but the important one is this one, which is Special Marvel Edition number 15. It also had number 16, so this is the first and second appearance of Shang-Chi, who is coming out in a Marvel movie later this year. So I'm telling you, get this book. It's still cheap. I mean, it's gotten more expensive since I've been recommending it for a while, but it is still a cheap book. I mean, I still buy it when I can. I've bought 3 copies last week. so get this book. It is a book that you should be picking up, because I mean, the instant we get that trailer, it is gonna explode. And any grade you can get it, as long as it's kind of like a reasonable price, I would pick it up. Next one is another X-Men book. Love this book. I have 2 other copies of it. I will probably send this one in for grading. This is X-Men number 9, and this is the first crossover of the Avengers with the X-Men, and I mean, yeah, just awesome cover. I mean, you've got them battling right on the cover. This one was sold as a 5.0, and I think it's at least a 5.0. If I remember correctly, the back has some tanning on it, but this is, I mean, it's an incredible looking copy. It's not just the Mylar, it is a really nice looking copy. And this book has gotten much more expensive lately. This is definitely one of those that, in between the time that I purchased it and now, it has gone up quite a bit. I estimated when I bought it about a $450 book, and it is now about a $700 book in this grade. So that is definitely the type of thing I like to see, with these books right now. And the last Raw book this is a cool one, and it looks terrible, but this book is a big deal, and this is Mystic Comics number 2. And I mean, this is a book from the 40s. You can see it's got this skeleton on the cover that has a swastika on his head. It's like a bondage cover with these women that he's injecting with whatever he's injecting them with. But this is what mouse chew looks like. If you've never seen mouse or rodent chew before, that is what this is. And luckily, they were actually really nice. They got in here, didn't get into the title, and when I opened it up and looked at it, it's just basically in the margins. And then down here, I mean, it does get into the interior story a little bit, but it didn't touch the women, and it's like it stopped right here. It's like, oh, we won't wreck that. We'll be nice. So, yeah, it's a lot of rodent chew, but I mean, this is an awesome book. This is still a very expensive book, even in this grade, which I'd have to say this is a 0.5 with this amount of damage. But even in a 0.5, this book is about a $500 book. So this is an awesome book. A cool Golden Age book. Very, very happy to get this one. All right, now that is the end of the Raw books, and now I'm going to move on to the slabs. So the first graded book here is X-Men number 142. This is a CBCS 9.6, and this is the second part to the Days of Future Past story. First part being X-Men number 141. This one is a lot less popular than 141. It doesn't carry nearly as much value as 141, but it's a great book. You want to have both issues. And the thing here is that this is a newsstand. You can see down here the barcode. And so I always like getting these high-grade newsstands, and I knew this one hadn't been pressed yet, and so it has a chance. I looked at it. It might have a chance at a 9.8. I don't know. It might be worth submitting and going for it, because it's such a big jump in price from a 9.6 to a 9.8, especially with newsstand. And then the other book, and so this was a 2-book lot, is X-Men number 141, also in the with the newsstand. This one is a 9.4, so I did take a close look at this one as well. It also hadn't been pressed. I think it has a shot at a 9.6. It's got 2, maybe 3 spine ticks that I can see. So I don't think it has a shot at a 9.8. I think that's outside the realm of possibility, but it does have a shot at a 9.6. And just because it's a newsstand, it might be worth it to crack it out and send it in. Also, just kind of get it into a CGC case, just for kind of consistency between books. All right. So next one here is Amazing Spider-Man number 122, and so this is the death of Green Goblin. The other part of this story is Amazing Spider-Man number 121, which is the death of Gwen Stacy. And so this, I think this cover is actually better than 121, but 121 does carry more value than this one, the yellow cover. But awesome cover, and just a great book to have. Again, Amazing Spider-Man keys, I'm always happy to get. Now this one, the case was cracked. I knew about that. They sold it that. They were very clear about that. But you can also see that this book, if you can tell, has not been cleaned at all. And it looks really nice. I am definitely considering cracking this one out, getting it pressed and cleaned and sending it in. I definitely think it could hit a 9, if not a little better than a 9. So it is a really, really nice book, and with this one, I think that's worth it, especially with a cracked case, because get a new case, and then also potentially get a grade bump. So this now this book here is another one that has not been pressed, and this book is on fire lately. This is Iron Fist number 14. Which is the first appearance of Sabretooth, and this book I think can press probably to an 8 based on what I looked at with it. So I think this one can get to an 8, which the price differences used to not be that big with this. You would have anywhere from a 6 to even almost like a 9 or an 8.5. It's maybe only $50 to $100 difference, but that has changed with the recent kind of shifts in the comic market, and you're starting to see those high-end books get much more expensive, and then you're getting some separation on the grades on these more mid-grade books, and so I think this one is probably worth it to get cracked out and pressed and regraded. Now, one thing I always think is funny with these CBCS cases is that they call it a newsstand edition, but they were all newsstand. It's not like there's a direct version. There is no direct version of this book, so I don't really know what they're calling out with that, but they do. But yeah, awesome book. I have a 9.2 of this one that I also think can maybe press higher to maybe a 9.4 that so I might just send both those in at the same time, get them cracked out, and see what grades I can get with them. Next book is another one that is extremely hot right now, and this is Avengers Annual number 10 in a CGC 9.6. This is the first appearance of Rogue. I have a 9.8 of this book as well. I was looking at this one. I don't think this one can press to a 9.8. It's got, you can see up here, let's see here, there's a little corner nick. There's a little color breaking crease up in that corner. Let's see, right up here. It's tough to see, but I think that's gonna hold it back because there's one spine tick and I think that's gonna keep it from hitting a 9.8. But it might be worth it because the price jump is very substantial. A 9.8 is going around $2,000 right now, and a 9.6 is around $700. So it may be worth it. If it was a newsstand, I would definitely go for it because I really want a newsstand of this book. But I don't know if it's worth it with this. All right, so the next one is an awesome Golden Age book that I have been after for quite a while, and finally got this one. This is Batman number 59. And anytime I can get a first appearance Batman book, especially a villain, I am excited about that. So this is the first appearance of Deadshot, and but it's also just, this cover is incredible. I mean, it's got this amazing, red, orange, yellow cover. I've mentioned before how I love these kind of like faded, covers that fade from top to bottom. I've also got this like bat spaceship, right on the cover and everything, and the bat signal. I mean, this is a great book, and very excited to get this one. And this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, where it's like you have the opportunity to get these types of keys instead of putting all of that into a real big book like an AF-15. And this book definitely hasn't been pressed, like you can see on the cover here. Let's see if I can give the lighting. You can see that fold in the middle. It's partially color breaking, but not fully color breaking. But I don't know if it would be worth pressing and trying, because like this top staple looks, like it's just barely holding on, and it's not really worth popping a staple with this book. I love this cover. It's going to go really well with other kind of like reddish covers that I have from Batman, so I'm very excited about that one. Okay, now we're gonna jump back into the Silver Age with some X-Men, and this is X-Men number 5. And this is an 8.0, very high grade. This is the second appearance of Scarlet Witch, second appearance of Toad, second appearance of Brotherhood of Evil, that kind of stuff. It's definitely not as iconic as issue 4. It's actually, I think Magneto looks horrible on this cover. I really don't like this cover, but this one has a pretty cool date stamp on it, right across the X, which I think is pretty nice. And when I looked at this one, this is another book that, man, like you can tell this book has not been pressed, and it is really nice. And I think this one has a chance at an 8.5, maybe even a 9. I don't know about a 9, but definitely chances an 8.5. And with how expensive X-Men books have gotten lately, it might be worthwhile to crack this out. A half grade could be worth it with X-Men books now, especially down this low, for X-Men number 5. Okay, now the next one. Now we're jumping up into some more modern, a couple more modern books. And so this is Amazing Spider-Man number 299, 9.8. This is the first cameo appearance of Venom. And, where everybody, kind of knows the first appearance is ASM 300. It's the first cameo appearance of Venom. And, it's an early Todd McFarlane Spider-Man. His first one was 298. And so this is his second, time on Spider-Man, so 299. 298 and 299, the covers look almost identical. I actually, if I had to pick them out without looking at the numbers, I don't know if I would. I think 299 has like 2 sets of like the gun beams, and 298 has 1, but I don't really remember for sure. But yeah, 98 of that, I was super excited to get that. I mean, the funny thing was with this book, like it's about a $1,300 book now. I had a 9.8 of this that I think about a year ago I sold for $300. I mean, and that was what it was going for. I mean, these books with the popularity of Venom, as well as just the increase in the market lately, I mean, they've just gotten so expensive. It's so different from the market about a year ago. All right, so this one, I've shown this book actually a few times. I've had a few copies of this. I've been working my way up to this copy. This is the one I really wanted. And this is NYX number 3. This is a 9.8. This is the first appearance of X-23. And like I've mentioned before, the other copy I have is a 9.6. I wanted a 9.8. That's what I've been going for. And finally got the opportunity to get this one. And, it's really, this book, it is beautiful when it's in a high grade. Just something about that color on that cover, like that teal color, it just looks really good. And, modern book, but it is an expensive modern book now. One just sold for around $1,700. So this book is getting very pricey, especially for a modern book. All right, this next one. Now this is, in my opinion, the best Venom cover that exists. And this is Amazing Spider-Man 316 and a 9.8. And this is the first full cover appearance of Venom. He appears as a little face on 315, but this is the first full cover appearance. Awesome book. It's the blood on his fingers just beating the crap out of Spider-Man. Everything is great about this book. And I don't think there's a better Venom cover out there. It's McFarlane Venom, love it. It's also a very controversial story because he is not very nice in this book. But this book is another one that, I mean, for years, this was a pretty cheap book, you know, 400 maybe, something like that. This book is now around $1,900, between $1,800 and $1,900 in a 9.8 for this book. So it's gotten very expensive, and, you know, again, popularity of Venom and just the demand for these books has gone through the roof. Okay, so this next one, this finally completes my little run that I'd been talking about in one of my prior videos. This is Fantastic Four number 48, and it's a 3.0. Again, this is a book that definitely hasn't been pressed. You can see those kind of like wrinkles and everything on it. The visibility or the appearance of the book would improve from a press. There's no question about that. However, if you can see down on the bottom, there are these two pieces of tape, here and here. And, you know, the spine has quite a bit of wear, but tape just kills the grade. It really does. And so I don't know if it could get up from a 3.0 to a 3.5 with a press, but it might be worth it. I mean, it's one of those books that really might be worth it. But you can see you know, it's easier to see the tape on the back. You can see, you know, where that tape is. But it might be worth the risk of getting it pressed and sending it back in, just because this book has gotten so expensive, and where any little bump in grade gives it a huge bump in value. So now books like this, they do cost more to grade as well. They generally, the person that's pressing the book will charge you more to press an expensive book like this, and then CGC charges you more to grade an expensive book like this. So you do have to consider that you may end up spending $100 or more just on pressing and grading. So if you're not going to get that amount of value out of it, it's not worth the hassle and the risk, because there's always a chance that something goes wrong, you pop a staple, and then you've got a lower grade book. All right, so this is another book that I have been working on upgrading. Now this isn't the end of the rainbow for me. You know, I do want, you know, a slightly higher grade, but this is Amazing Spider-Man 300 and a 9.6. I really want a 9.8, but this is a 9.6. It's signed by David Michelini, and, you know, it's a cool signature. You know, it's right in the middle here. It kind of hides itself in the webs. Now, ideally, you know, you'd want like a McFarlane signature on it, and so if he does another CGC signing, I may consider sending this one in. I'm so nervous, though, about sending in books that are this high grade, you know, 9.6, because if you drop down to a 9.4, you're losing like $1,000. And I don't know if it's worth that risk. I mean, it looks like it's a pretty solid 9.6. You know, I can see 2, maybe 3 spine ticks, like really clear spine ticks. So I don't think it has any chance at a 9.8, but it is a risk, you know, sending in a book that's that high of grade. Now, I have a 9.4. I'm definitely going to sell the 9.4. It's one where I just kind of like keep the highest grade copy of the book that I have. And but I'm waiting for that Venom trailer to drop before I sell any of my kind of like Venom related books that I'm looking to move, Venom or Carnage books, because the prices of books really seem to spike around the first trailer, and so that's what I'm waiting for to move that other book. But for now, this is my best copy. I'm very happy with that, because that extra 0.2 right now costs about $3,000 to move up from a 9.6 to a 9.8. You know, this is around a $2,400 book right now. I think there was a recent sale around $2,300, $2,350, and I'm adding just a little bit for the signature. But you know, a 9.8 is around $5,500. So that's it's for that 1 or 2 less spine ticks. It's a lot of money. So I just haven't been able to pull the trigger on that book yet. All right, up next I've got another Golden Age first appearance, and this is another big one. Now this is a restored book. This is now the second restored book that I have, and this is World's Finest number 3. And it's it's restored B2, which is the kind of like halfway between amateur and professional, and it's a slight to moderate restoration. This one, I believe it's all color touch. Yeah, it's a small amount of color touch on cover. I don't really have any desire to remove it. Yeah, I can definitely see where some of it is. You know, you can see down here where that darker green is. But I mean, this is a big book, regardless of if it's restored or not. And when you're talking about books, this is 1941. You're talking about Golden Age. Restoration, like I've mentioned in my prior video on restoration, isn't nearly as big of a deal. Now, this is the first appearance of the Scarecrow, and you know the biggest problem with it is the cover. You know, it's like Batman, Robin, and Superman playing baseball. Like, it's just, I've mentioned I don't really care for the campy covers, and this one has a lot of that going on. But it is the first appearance of the Scarecrow, a huge Batman villain, and I mean, definitely bigger than Deadshot. And so this is a awesome book to have. I was very excited to get this book. I actually got this book from the same seller that I got that Fantastic Four 48 from, and I was very excited when I got this one, because it is just it's such a cool book to have. I like I've mentioned, I love getting these Golden Age first appearances, especially big characters, and Scarecrow, he's a big Batman villain. I mean, it's not like Joker, but still a big Batman villain. 1941, awesome book. All right, so this next one, it's actually a book that I showed just maybe a few minutes ago. This is a better copy. So this is X-Men number 141 and a 9/8, and it is a newsstand. And this book has gotten really, really expensive. Around $2,500 in a 9/8 newsstand, I think was the high sale that I've seen for this book. And I mean, it's such an iconic book. You know, this cover has been used this cover has been swiped for other books, including one of the first kind of like cameo appearances of Invincible uses a swipe of this cover. And like I've mentioned, I love the high grade newsstands, the 9/8 newsstands. I'm always trying to get those, and the opportunity came up to get this one, and I went for it, which is why I'm really kind of hoping I can get that 9/6 of 142 pressed into a 9/8, because I'd love to have both of those books in a 9/8 and a newsstand. I think that would be awesome. So very excited to have this book. You know, it's the first part of the Days of Future Past story, which I love that movie. I thought it was a great movie, and it's a great story for X-Men, and very excited to get that book. All right, we've got two left, and the next one is a book that has gotten extremely expensive lately, and this goes along with kind of what I've talked about recently about second appearances. You know, the first appearances have gotten very pricey, and so now second appearances are gaining a lot of attention. And this one is more than just a normal second appearance. I talked about this, I think, in my last video. So this is Fantastic Four number 6, and this is a 4/0, and it's the second appearance of Doctor Doom. It's the second appearance of the Silver Age Submariner. It's the first Marvel supervillain team up. So it's Submariner and Doctor Doom teaming up together, and you know, it is a book that, because that Fantastic Four number 5, the first appearance of Doctor Doom, has gotten so expensive, people are starting to move over to this one, and there have been some big sales in this book. I think a 2/0 sold for $1,600. So you know, this book has gotten way up there in price, and I have a 2/5 that I'm now selling, and I have a raw copy that I'm also selling, that are both lower grade than this. So I've been trying to upgrade this book, and I was happy to have the opportunity to pick this one up, you know, 4/0. Okay, last book. Now, the funny thing with this one is, when I bought this book, this would not have been the highest value book on this list, but in the last, you know, month or so, and that's kind of how long this book's been sitting in this box, this has gotten very, very expensive. Now, it was already getting expensive, but it's gone through the roof, and this is Marvel Spotlight number 5, and it's a 6.5 signed by Roy Thomas. And now they said this one hadn't been pressed. It definitely hasn't. I don't think it can move up from a 6.5, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, this book now is somewhere in the $2,500 to $2,800 range in a 6.5, which is just, I mean, it's crazy. I sold a 6.0 probably 4 months ago, I think for like $950. You know, and that book, a 6.0, just recently sold for around $1,900 or $2,000. It might have even broken $2,000, I can't remember, but I mean, Ghost Rider is an extremely popular character, and this book is tough to get in even kind of like mid-grade because of all the black. It tends to be a book that has, it's hard to get in high grade, and it's cool that this one's signed as well. This is the highest grade copy of this book I have now. I have a couple other copies of it. I've been holding off on selling them, as kind of, like I said, the comic prices have gone so high recently that big keys like this I've been holding off on selling. But this is kind of like my highest grade one, the one I probably wouldn't be selling, but very happy to get this book. And that is the last one on the list. So you can see there are a lot of books here, and this is all kind of the same price as if I was to have a single Amazing Fantasy 15. If you've stuck through to this point, and seen all these books, the thing I wanted to talk about then was why. Why did I make this decision to buy all these books instead of saving that money and just picking up a big Silver Age Grail, like an AF-15? And why do most of us do that same thing? Maybe it's not at this level, but a lot of us do the same thing, where instead of buying, whatever big book it might be, whether it's a Fantastic Four 1 or Hulk 1 or even a Hulk 181, like a low-grade Hulk 181, whatever it might be, why do we buy all these other books instead of buying that, that big book? And for me, when I'm talking about something like an AF-15, Amazing Fantasy 15, a really in-demand book like that, if you're buying an AF-15, you're paying the market price for an AF-15. You're not getting big deals on an AF-15, because if you try to get a big deal on one of those books, the person will just go to the next person, because there are plenty of people that want that book. And so you may get, a little bit off for the person to sell it right at that moment, but you're not going to get a significant price reduction or any type of deal that you're going to be able to work with an Amazing Fantasy 15. Now there may be somebody that that has an exception to that, but in general that is going to be the rule with a book like that. Now the way I can kind of show that with the books that I got, as I said, I would talk about some numbers a little bit. And so for all of these books here that I said at the time that I bought them would be valued at $23,200, I paid $17,400. So that is a pretty substantial difference in price between the kind of market value that you could expect to get for them and what I paid. That's around $6,000 less. And you are not going to get an AF-15 for $6,000 less than its market price. You aren't. And again, maybe there's somebody that's got some, rare time that they were able to do that, but you're not going to get that type of discount on a book like that. And now for what these books are worth now, because like I said, these are books that I've had sitting for, some of them maybe 4 to 6 weeks, something like that. And so prices have changed since I bought them. So just to be fair, like I said, I put in the price that it was worth when I bought it. But now all these books combined are worth around $27,200. So they've gone up around $4,000 in that amount of time, around 20%. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to buy those big keys. Everybody's collecting goals are different. But if you're looking at it from a purely financial aspect, I think the benefit is with, these kinds of books in kind of maybe more like the $100 to $2,000 price range. Then for me as well, because, while I like to collect books and everything, I also really enjoy buying and selling books. That's something that I really like in this hobby. And getting into, a volume of books like this, that's something where it allows me to pick certain books that I want to keep, and then I have other books that I want to move on, that I want to sell. And so I can't do that if I'm just buying, one really big book. So this allows me to kind of have that part of the hobby that I really enjoy, which I can't do if I'm buying, those really expensive keys. Then, the other side of it is, it would be really cool to have like an AF-15, but it's also really cool to have like these variety of books, having first appearance of Ghost Rider, first appearance of the Scarecrow, this like crazy Golden Age stuff, first X-Men Avengers crossovers, all these kinds of just like really cool books that I have the ability to get if I'm putting, money towards, this variety of books instead of, one single book. Now, the other side of it is I know if I got an AF-15, it would be very difficult to to let that book go. And so the likelihood of being able to move that book on and then, kind of using that money to buy and sell other books, that kind of thing, it probably wouldn't be there. So having that much money tied up in a book like that, I'm not sure if that's something that for me, the way I'm personally collecting in the hobby right now, would really work for me. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about was with the financial aspects of these different books. And it was just something I looked at with how the prices move on different levels of books. And so it's just something I've noticed when you've got a very expensive book. Now, it may go up by a lot of money, but percent-wise, it doesn't go up as much as some of the less expensive books. And so, for example, an Amazing Fantasy 15, I'm saying that the average is around 23,000 for that AF-15 2.5 right now. And back in 2018, it was going for around 14,000 to 17,000, kind of in that range. And it had a pretty hard fall at the start of the pandemic. It fell down to around 10 to 12,000. So if you look at where it was in 2018, kind of during its kind of normal time, from the 14,000 to 17,000 up to this, kind of 23 to 25,000, that's an increase of 65 to 80%. I mean, that is a lot. And if you're talking about where it really dipped, if you're lucky enough to grab a copy around that 10 to 12,000 price point, you are having an increase of around 100%, maybe a little more than that, 120%, 115%. But if you look at another Spider-Man key, a book that doesn't cost quite as much as that. We're going to go with an Amazing Spider-Man number 3, the first appearance of Doc Ock. A recent sale in a 3.0 was for $3,800. And in 2018, kind of the same time frame, it was selling for around $1,000 to $1,200. So in that same time period, we've had an increase of 220 to 280%. And so, yeah, that AF-15 went up by, $10,000, give or take, but that was only 65 to 80%, whereas this Amazing Spider-Man number 3, which was a little less expensive book, still a big key, went up by $2,800, $2,600 to $2,800, but that's 220 or 280 to 280%. And so you will often see that you get a bigger percent movement in these books that aren't quite as expensive, and I think a big part of that is because more people can afford them. When you have these really expensive books, you have a smaller pool of buyers, and when you start kind of getting down around $1,000, $500, that kind of thing, you do have a much larger pool of buyers, and so you can have a lot more demand for those books. I have one more example of that, and that's X-Men number 1. Now, X-Men number 1 was never as expensive as Amazing Fantasy 15. And similar to what I did with the video that I made about X-Men 94, I took the most common copy of X-Men 1, which was a 3.0, and it had a recent high sale of $15,000. I mean, that book has been on fire. Back in 2018, a 3.0 was going for $3,000. Average kind of across the year was around $3,000. That's a huge increase. That's 400% in 3 years, or even a little less than 3 years. But then I took giant size X-Men 1, which is a little more affordable book than X-Men number 1. Its most common copy is an 8.5. It recently sold for $9,300 in March. And its price in 2018 was really all over the place. It was anywhere from about $1,000 to $1,900, but that puts its increase at 400 to 800%. So on the low end, just as good as X-Men 1, but on the high end, 800%, and the average about 550%. So it's not as big of a difference as what you see with AF-15 and Amazing Spider-Man 3, where you've got a book that costs 10 to 15 times as much. In this case, it's a book that was about 2 times as much, give or take, and you still saw a bigger increase in price with that book that was a little more affordable. And that's kind of the same thought process, at least if you're looking at these books kind of from an investment standpoint, something where, these are things that carry value, that you have in your collection, that kind of thing, that you're maybe looking to sell later on or whatever it might be. And these books do tend to move more than the really, really big keys. And so I think, at least from a financial aspect, you know, if you're looking at these books, that's another argument to invest in those books. Now, again, like I mentioned, everybody collects differently. Everybody has different collecting goals, different goals within the hobby. You know, if you want those big, you know, big keys, you should go after those big keys. I'm guessing at some point, you know, I'll transition to where I'll want to try to go after some of those books. You know, maybe I will want to move on from, you know, from those and put them towards an X-Men one or something like that. But for now, this is kind of the aspect of the hobby that I really enjoy. These are the types of books that I like to buy that work for me in the hobby. And I want to jump back to that, you know, that guy on Instagram that basically called me stupid for my opinion on this. I mean, maybe it's not so stupid. You know, if you can get $23,000 in books for $17,000 instead of, you know, $23,000 in books for $23,000, at least from a financial aspect, it is a good decision. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was pretty long, but some awesome books I got to show. I thought it was kind of a fun, you know, way to look at, you know, buying these types of keys versus buying, you know, a huge, you know, big grail book. And I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this, and I will see you in the next video.